I'd like to introduce now the moderator for today's program. He's a member of our program committee. I first met Peter. He was a participant in Leadership Whatcom, and he was on the team that I helped facilitate. And he is the Bellingham city attorney now, and he is going to come up and introduce today's speakers. Peter?
Good afternoon. I'm Peter Raffato. Before we get to today's program, our program committee chair, Don Keenan, asked me to let you know about our upcoming April 24th program. That program will consist of a presentation by retired Foreign Service Officer Mark Lyjak, who in November of 1979, along with his wife and 5 other Americans, found himself as a hurriedly invited guest of the Canadian ambassador in Tehran, Iran, thus avoiding the fate of 52 of their American embassy colleagues who wound up as hostages of the Iranian Revolutionary Council for 444 days. Mark and Cora Lyjak's subsequent experiences recounted in the recently named Best Picture of the Year, Argo, which is Hollywood's version of those events. Unlike the film itself, Mark's own version gives a great deal more credit to the Canadian embassy team he believes saved him and his wife Cora from becoming hostages. Mr. Lyjak will share his experience with us on April 24th. We look forward to that, and we hope you can join us. So we look forward to that program. For today, I'm very pleased to introduce the program and our presenters, and I'll talk more about them in a bit. But they will help us understand local economic development from a practitioner's perspective. This program will allow us to dig a little bit deeper and draw some connections to some previous programs we've had. There's been several programs related to the state and local economy over the years. More specifically, in November 2011, we heard from Hart Hodges on how to get from slogans to substance in economic development. And more recently, in January of this year, we heard from 3 panelists that covered the economic elements of Whatcom County and the connections to the world economy. But today's topic focuses on local economic development from the practitioner's perspective. And a little bit of context for that. Our local economy and nationally is a mixed bag. Some recent news, and there's reports of a need for more living wage jobs in Whatcom County. Local trends, we see there's growth, but perhaps, or my understanding is we're still below 2008 levels in terms of job creation. But there's upsides as well. It's reported that construction jobs are on the rise. And in a recent review of the U.S. best performing cities by the Milken Institute, Bellingham ranked 35th nationally, up from 104th in 2011, and the highest Washington city in the small city category, and that was based on job growth in wages and salary, among other factors. And even as of today, it's a mixed bag as reported by the Bellingham Herald, where we have some job market disparity between urban and rural, but we also see nationally, at least, housing and manufacturing on the rise. So today's presenters have the mission to continue improvement in this area. So we're going to hear from Jennifer and John, who are 2 passionate practitioners, and they have a unique perspective given the specific programs that they administer and given their current daily contact with local entrepreneurs and businesses. As far as the format, we'll have them, they will each have a presentation. I'll pose a few questions, and then we'll open it up for further questions. You know, some of the specifics I think we can expect to learn. What is an associate development organization? And I would like to lodge a complaint. That's a very non-descriptive term. But John Michener will help us understand what that is. And what are the most pressing needs of our local small businesses? And I expect to hear from Jennifer on that. I think there are PowerPoint handouts. It looks like everyone has those. More specifically to our panelists, Jennifer Shelton has been the director of the Western Washington University Small Business Development Center since 2010 and a certified business advisor with the Washington SBDC network since 2003. She was the previous director of the SBDC at Highline Community College at Edmonds Community College. Jennifer holds an MBA from Western Washington University and a BA of Communications from Seattle Pacific University. She also has additional certification in sales and marketing and professional coaching. Jennifer brings 20 years of work experience in business development and communications in corporate and nonprofit. Her small business experience involves starting and managing a retail coffee shop with 12 employees in Fort Langley, BC. She's taught and written curriculum on business planning and technology called 21st Century Business Planning, which is currently being used in the Washington Self-Employment Assistance Program. In 2010, Jennifer was awarded the State Star for Washington SBDC, and she is passionate about empowering business owners to create and sustain successful business ventures. John Michener, he's an economic development specialist with the Port of Bellingham. John holds a degree in economics from the University of Washington. As an economic development specialist with the Port of Bellingham, John's responsibilities include ensuring all criteria of the State of Washington Associate Development Organization contract are met or exceeded on a quarterly basis, administration of the Economic Development Administration Revolving Loan Fund, and administering the Whatcom Prospector commercial property website. Prior to joining the Port for the past 5 years, John held the position of Programs Manager at the Northwest Economic Council. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming our presenters.
Thank you, everybody, for having us here today, and especially thank you because I've been looking forward to this, and March 27th, and it also reminded me today was my anniversary, so I didn't forget that either. It was great. We're going to talk a little bit about economic development and what we do here in the county, how it gets done. So to start with, what is it? Let's lay a little groundwork on that to begin with. The International Economic Development Council is a national or international organization, and that's how they define it. It's really about excuse me, improving the economic well-being of a community through these creation, retention, tax-based enhancements, and your quality of life, not necessarily in that order either. A really key piece to remember is the bottom one there, that communities are all different. So every economic development strategy, if you will, is going to be tailored to each community. And a way, kind of an overview way I like to think of it is, you know, we live in the Nooksack River Valley, and the Nooksack River charts a very specific course through our community. The Skagit does the same. You can take it from there. We'd be foolish to think we're going to go change how that Nooksack flows drastically on a daily basis. So we have to learn what we're given, what our natural competitiveness is, and then how to enhance those and use those to make our economy stronger. And at the same time, we can support other economies outside of ours, which really helps everybody over the long term. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about what the ADO is. As Peter said, Associate Development Organization. It's not very descriptive. Started with Booth Gardner's administration. And what it was, they decided they wanted to do an economic development effort in the state of Washington and figured those that live in the communities would best know what's going on in the community and can develop the relationships with the manufacturers, the companies that work and live there, as opposed to somebody from Olympia coming down a couple times a year and asking what's going on. So they started the ADO system. It is a contract relation, and with the strategic goal of the ADO system, I'll just read from this, it is to retain, grow, attract businesses by improving and communicating Washington's competitive advantages. So that sort of puts everybody on the same page in terms of what we're trying to do with this ADO system. There are 34 in the state, 39 counties, so it's about a one-to-one relationship. The county council, county executive is the person that decides who holds that ADO designation. And up until about a year ago now, the Northwest Economic Council was the ADO for Whatcom County. At that point in time, the decision was made with the port commissioners came along and said, you know, we're already doing countywide economic development. There were funding issues with budget cutbacks and things happening, and it just really made sense to move this ADO contract to the Port of Bellingham. So I got to come with the ADO contract. I was very happy about that. It's a great move, I think, for everybody to be able to do this. The resources are there, and we can really concentrate on the work that needs to be done and not funding questions that had occurred in the past. Part of doing this, there's a strategy involved. The port commissioners, following the port mission of transportation and economic development in the county, dovetails very nicely with what the ADO contract deliverables are. We'll go into that in a little bit. I want to say too, on the state side, the state has 5 areas of focus that they have identified. Again, if you know how your river flows, you don't want to, you know, we're not going to start growing oranges here in Whatcom County. So the state's done the same thing, and their focus is on aerospace, clean technology, life sciences, global health, information communication technology, advanced manufacturing, and marine technology. So amongst those, there's quite a few things that here in Whatcom County we can take advantage of and we're very good at. Marine technology brings up one, advanced manufacturing. Aerospace, we have a pretty vibrant aerospace sector here, just to name a few, how those all work together. So with the port commissioners and establishing what they do with the ADO contract and the state deliverables, it works very well. Also a change that took place this year, the funders, the port, the city, and the county came together and said, we want to fund economic development as a unit, and we also want to describe what economic development services we want from the community, and then folks can come in and tell us if they can or can provide those services, as opposed to individual organizations coming and saying, we will do X, Y, and Z, could you fund it? So that's a change that took place, and it's really streamlined the services that are available in the community today. Partners, it's not done alone at all. You always are developing partnerships and relationships with other people, private, public organizations. On a daily basis, we touch base with any one of these things depending on what's coming up that we're needing to deal with or address or get ahead of. And so we're always keeping these relationships fresh, if you will, and trying to stay with that. How do we do it? What are the things, some of the things that are available? Financial. You know, the port has an industrial revenue bond program. We have a federally funded revolving loan fund where we're actually able to make loans to small businesses here in the community. Primarily, we look at manufacturing companies who are in an expansion mode, so it's about job creation. And we can help them get a foot up where maybe a commercial lender might not be willing to do the entire project. We can come in with some gap financing and help that out. We also work with companies who are trying to, you know, do more exporting, and Jennifer does a lot of this too, where we put them in touch with folks at the Ex-Im Bank to get financing on foreign accounts receivables, their SBA programs, a bunch of those types of things will happen there. The workforce system is fantastic here in the county. The Workforce Development Council, they actually cover 4 counties, and we work with them very closely as well. You can see down the list, I'm not going to read everyone there, but those are sort of the things that are at hand that we can bring to keep a company here, expand a company, or maybe attract one. A thing to note, the state of Washington Constitution does not allow us to lend money to businesses or grant money to businesses. So we're at a bit of a disadvantage there. You'll see South Carolina is doing more with Boeing every day, and they're writing checks. We can't do that. So we have to find other ways to keep businesses here and attract them here. Quite frankly, it's not that difficult because we have such a phenomenal workforce. We have a great system in place, and it's a great place to live. And we tell people, well, they'll say you have a high, your minimum wage is high, and we say, well, you get what you pay for. So it works. It's good stuff. So the ADO contract, what exactly is it? There are 5 components of this contract that we do. And the biggest one is by far retention and expansion of existing businesses. It makes much more sense to keep the folks who you have and understand who they are and grow those businesses as opposed to going out and trying to attract some other big new thing. It sounds fun. It's really exciting that the next quote-unquote Microsoft's moving in, but how many how many cities are in the country and how many of them would like to do the same thing? Your dollar is much, much better spent supporting who you have. And we do a lot of that here locally. Just a quick slide there about what it does mean to keep who you have. Part of this effort, my colleague Dodd Snodgrass and I at the port have started last year in January of 2012, just going out and meeting the manufacturers we have in Whatcom County with no agenda other than letting them know with the ADO moving to the Port of Bellingham, we're still a county-wide focused organization. We're helping anybody. It's not a port-specific project at all. It's simply helping the manufacturers in Whatcom County survive and succeed. So this is just some of the information we've gathered for the past year. We're up to almost 100 visits now, and we're going to wrap that up and formalize a report once that's done. Kind of a curious fact we'll ask folks as we're wrapping up interviews. If you could locate a company next to you tomorrow, who would that be? Now, obviously not everybody said this, but we talked to a lot of machine shops. There are a lot of metal shops here in the county, and without a doubt, they all say they would like to see a galvanizing plant. So if anybody wants to finance a galvanizing plant, the need is out there. Another question is, where did these companies come from? How did they get here? It's a slide speaking to that right there. A lot of folks went to Western, liked it, and stayed and started a company here. They grew up here. Family businesses have been passed on. So the majority have been here. Canadians is the next biggest folks that come south of the border. Simply, it's easier to manufacture here on this side of the border to access the U.S. domestic market as opposed to exporting from Canada or importing into the United States. So we get a lot of business doing that. And then you'll see on the right-hand side there, relocations 2%. So that's, again, speaking to the fact that your money's better spent supporting who you have and not so much going after a new company that's out there. Not that we don't. We get these inquiries all the time. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. When we talk to these companies, these are some of the questions that come up, the issues that we get from them of our local companies. And we take this information and then we'll share that with the folks that can somehow help bring resources to bear to solve some of those issues. There are a lot of positives going out in the county with the recessionary things that have gone on. Exporting has been a big deal that's kept a lot of companies afloat and growing, if you will. The energy sector is a big one of those. The Milken report that Peter referred to earlier, the #1 small city on that is Logan, Utah, and it was due to the fact they have their state budget is solid, they're funding their universities, and promoting high-tech and energy-type projects. So energy was a big one, and then high-tech was another big one there. So exporting and energy has helped us out here. We are seeing an uptick in commercial building, and some of the fun ways we find out about that, we've talked to a company that they make netting, and they are actually selling netting to India because their netting is the only one that meets the safety requirements for doing the high-rise projects they need it for in India. So it's not always a one-way trip. We're doing some great stuff here in that regard. A couple examples of these businesses folks may or may not be aware, but there are world-class manufacturing and remanufacturing companies here in the county that we have. So if anybody sees the deadliest catch, every one of those crab pots pretty much, the netting is made from diamond nets up in Everson. This is a slide that shows Bellingham is doing well, the municipal service area here. It has been revised, and the article came out in the paper this morning talking about that a little bit. We have now switched places with the Seattle, Bellevue, Everett area. They are ahead of us. There was more layoffs from the retail sector than they took into account when the slide was made. And Seattle is hiring a lot. If anybody's been to South Lake Union lately and seeing what's going on down there, but Amazon has taken over the world down in that neck of the woods. But we're doing very well. And that is, again, I attribute a lot of that to a diverse manufacturing sector, and the construction industry, as Peter mentioned too, is starting to come back. We assist with startup businesses, but there's a lot of agencies that also have their niches in this regard. So in this capacity, we're more of a connector, if you will, getting those companies, when we hear about them, to the proper agency that will help them down that path in the most expeditious manner. So these are just a few, by means not everybody that's out there to help startups, but this is a great startup system we have here in the county. Recruitment and attraction, we do this. We get leads from all over the place. A quick thing to note here would be this past year, we've had 24 inquiries from different agencies and areas asking companies looking to move and locate here in Whatcom County. The prior year, we received 2. So companies are getting interested again. Folks have money in the bank and they're looking at expanding. A lot of these are Canadian firms looking again to operate in the United States and come down here and access these markets. Currently, Back in our office, we have a whiteboard of projects we're working on. Now we have 14 on the board right now. And what that means, we call them live projects. That's simply a company that has not made a decision yet, and we're still talking to them. So there's still a possibility there. So 14, it's pretty, I haven't seen that in quite a while. Another one of the tools we have is this Whatcom Prospector website. It is a wonderful tool that commercial properties in the county can be listed here. You do not have to be a commercial broker to use it. If you own commercial property or lease commercial property, you can sign up and list your property on here. It's a service that we provide to these folks for free at this stage of the game, due to the fact that site selectors are people looking to relocate a business or move a business, expand a business. They start on the internet. It's just a fact of life. Over 95%, the search starts there. So the more information we can give them with the most ease, the more likely they will to contact us for further information. So just real briefly, this is a very in-depth, data-rich site. So just a couple of things you can do. If you find a site, for example, you can actually tell it, okay, I want to open a business here. This is actually just, I picked this in Ferndale since it's so much centrally located. And then I want to say it's a retail business that I want to open, and I want to know a 10-minute drive time map. So then it will draw you a 10-minute drive time map, and then it will show you below, you can pull up consumer expenditures within that area. And you can go on and on beyond this. You can show a 5-minute drive time, a 30-minute drive time, or you can just do a radius. What's within a half mile of this location? What other businesses are located here? What are their sales figures? What are their employment numbers? It's really an amazing site, and we're getting some great feedback on this one. So very happy that this has been launched and using it. Readiness, asset capacity building, one more of the things that we do as the state contract. And this is where we take information when we go talk to manufacturers and things, and we find out issues they might have. And these are some of the places where we will circle back around and try and address those. Also, companies that are coming to the area. If they don't end up landing here, we try to come back to them and sort of do an exit interview, if you will. Why was the decision not to come here? What might that be? And see if that's something we can improve on in the future. And sometimes it's not. It's just simply the way it is. Some folks say the weather. And until we can fix the weather, well, that's the way it is. But I like the weather. I think it's nice. I like it being green, so it's okay. Federal, local, state initiatives. Exports have been real big over the last few years, and that's something we definitely keep in mind as we're talking to companies. The state has a program now. It's federal dollars that the state administers. It's called the STEP program, where a company, if you're looking to export or increase your exports, the state will grant you up to $5,000 with a match from the local company to help you in that effort. So we're always cognizant of those things and making sure they're addressed. Strategic planning is the last area that we pay attention to, if you will, with this ADO contract. And these 5 items here, this comes from the Washington Economic Development Commission. Eagles Millsberg is the director. He spent the last 3 or 4 years putting this together. They've just come out with this. Then obviously we also are involved with local efforts, strategic planning, that type of thing. We don't necessarily lead it, but we're very involved with it and are paying attention to that from the ADO perspective. Successful programs, to wrap up real briefly. It's always long-term. Economic development, it's a long-term game. It doesn't happen quickly. You always have to have partnerships, and with your partner agencies and also with the companies that you have in your region. That's another reason we've gone out and talked to our manufacturers, if nothing else, to say, hello, thank you for being here. We appreciate what you're doing for the community. Down the road, if there's anything we can do to help you, let us know, and just start building those relationships. The ADO, if you will, for Skagit County is the Economic Development Association of Skagit County. Don Wick, I'm sure most people know Don Wick. He's a legend in these parts. And Don's been doing it for about 25 years now. And he has these great relationships with these companies. And I'll meet with Don and I say, you know, you do a really great job. And he goes, yeah, I don't sit in my chair. I get out and I go talk to people. And I make sure that I'm involved. It's a really important piece. Build on relationships. You can't just sit around. And the last piece that I heard a number of years back from some folks over in Benton County, they said, you know, you got to be patient. You need to know who you are so that you can, you know, race your strengths and train your weaknesses, if you will, and be patient. Economic development success is measured in decades. So you really got to know where you want to go and go with the flow to get there and not try to be something you're not. And typically you come up with some pretty good success. So that's a quick overview of what we do here locally, and I will now hand it to Jennifer, who will talk about some of the resources that are available to individual businesses when specific issues come up and the services that they provide them.
All right, I'm Jennifer Shelton. I'm the director of the Small Business Development Center that serves Whatcom County. This is a 34-year-old federal program. There are 1,100, or there are about 1,000 SBDCs in the country. There used to be 1,100. And each of those SBDCs is a unique partnership between economic development agencies, government, and higher education. The main purpose of small business development centers is to provide in-depth, confidential advising to businesses to help them stabilize, grow, make good decisions, start viably, and stay around in the community for the long term. This contribution to economic development can be measured in sustained growth, which contributes to overall regional growth. A unique aspect of our program is the team we have at the SBDC. These are our state colleagues, and they are available to Whatcom County business clients. We are in contact with this team daily via our listserv, and their expertise enhances not only our clients' questions, but our own advising as well. Another unique aspect of the program is the standards that we hold. In 2012, the U.S. Government Office of Accountability conducted analysis of 52 economic development programs that support entrepreneurs, and SBDCs were recognized as employing best practices in the areas of tracking, collaboration, efficiency, effectiveness, meeting performance goals, and evaluations. These are the services as far as advising and technical assistance that we provide. Policy for these services is determined by Congress, something like the Small Business Jobs Act. A new initiative is export, as John mentioned, and due to that we have 2 international trade specialists available to Whatcom County and a student research team specific to export, all at no charge. And as advisors, we also get provided professional development in each of these areas. The SBA provides the definition for the size of business that our program can work with. There are size revenues for every industry and every NAICS code. If you don't know what that is, it's North American Industrial Classification Codes. And the purpose of that is, the idea is that businesses of a certain revenue size can afford consultants, and our services are there to help businesses get to that point. This is a current list of the industries in Whatcom County, and our client database, the profile of our clients pretty much match that. The top industries that we're seeing are retail and manufacturing, and go down the list, and I'll cover that in a little bit. Manufacturing is highlighted because it has shown up in every category that we serve. And these are the categories that we serve: expansion, retention, and startup. The average years in business is 9. That ratio, those ratios are pretty standard for SBDC offices around the state. I'd say that the startup is a little bit higher this year in Whatcom County. Ideally, I'd like to see it around 20%. But nonetheless, that's the ratio. And we also track business inquiries that people call in with questions, and about 5% of those have been inquiries about doing business in Whatcom County. And then we get John at the ADO the lead on those. So here's kind of an example of the work we do. In the expansion category, the top industries that have been seeking SBDC is manufacturing, along with those other industries. Within the issues, mainly in all those industries in expansion, what they're focusing on is branding and marketing, along with financial planning for growth. In the retention category, manufacturing businesses also is the top seekers of our services. And what I've noticed personally is a lot of accounts receivable collections issues, not just in manufacturing, but in all retention clients. And in that instance, then they're looking for financing for the cash flow gap or trying to increase sales. So those are the issues that we work with and have some happy customers there. In the startup category, manufacturing also showed up on top, and the trend in that one is value-added food products, just seeing an influx of those types of things. And we focus on business planning and feasibility. A lot of them are seeking sources of capital. And we help them with their loan packages to ensure some success, help them figure out their market. So here's a summary of the key issues of clients overall of our database. Acquisition, we're seeing quite a few of those where business people that have not owned a business before are looking to purchase one, come work with us. And in sources of capital, a lot of successful deals are happening with alternative loan programs right now. And then, as always, the startup calls for people wanting to start a business are at the top of the list, as well as resources. So goals for our program are set by Congress. They are negotiated at the state level by the SBA district office, and results are validated by a third party. And as overall, the SBDC makes a contribution to economic development by working with businesses on sustaining their growth. And the return on federal dollars from the results that we see are over 2 to 1. Public policymakers tend to conclude that our work in assisting businesses with their operations and in raising capital is an effective utilization and allocation of resources. So last year, this is the summary of the work we did. I'll highlight that our focus again is on in-depth business work. So those are the business clients that we serve. Yet we also put on trainings. We did about 40 trainings last year. And daily we handle inquiries. People walk in, people email, people call us with questions, in distress or just wanting resources. So we might sit down and provide guidance. And so in total we served about, without them becoming an in-depth client. So in total we served about 918 businesses last year. And this year, that was with a transition year with increasing staff over the years. So this year with our team of 6, we look forward to making a big difference in Whatcom County. And we look forward to serving the businesses here. So that's all I had to share.
So I have just a few questions in follow-up, and I'd like both of your thoughts on these topics. If you think beyond your specific program, what are the key components that will ensure continued business expansion in Whatcom County? A two-part question. That's number one. Number two, how can local government, local academics, and other local development partners ensure those components continue to exist?
I'm going to hit the second question first, because there's a great example that we learned about when we attended the Washington Economic Development Association. They have a legislative meeting every year, and sort of ADOs go down in Olympia to see what's on the legislative agenda coming forward. And we had a presentation from the state auditor's office, who is advocating for this program where they're going out and taking permitting planning offices throughout the state through the lean process. Lean manufacturing doesn't just apply to manufacturing alone. It goes to anytime there's a process, is there a way to lean it out? And I believe it was Kitsap County. They took their permitting process from, and it was for single family houses, if I remember correctly, from 26 days down to 6. What a great thing you can do to support businesses and the folks that live in your community. And we just learned yesterday that our county planning offices are doing the same. They have been accepted into this program. And you do one piece at a time, and they're doing single-family houses. That's the first piece they're going to concentrate on, and moving forward with that. So how can we support, you know, who we have? That's a great start right there. What are the pieces that keep businesses successful and keep them here? That's a really interesting question. There was a study that just came out talking about how clusters no longer mean anything, geography doesn't mean anything. What your best business success comes from being there to support your companies as they're growing, and you want them to grow steadily, not real fast and stop fast. You want just a nice steady growth and have the services there to keep that happening. So that, you know, what, you know, as business owners, you know, you can answer that for yourselves, what's best there. But known permitting processes, access to capital, having partners, organizations out there that can help you, you know, through tough times, all those things I think play a real good role. And I think we're doing very well in both those aspects.
There was a study that just came out in February 2013 out of the Edward Lowe Foundation from a gentleman with a PhD in economic development and public policy. And he was asserting that sustained growth of businesses is the key to overall regional economic growth. And since that's I see it on the ground as a practitioner daily, that the difference that can be made in a business owner as they're working through fears of growth or any kind of issues that they're having. So I'd be interested in seeing information or more measurements at a higher level on that model of sustained growth. My wish list, honestly, from the bottom of the ground here, when I'm working one-on-one with businesses, is that a lot of them have a lot of strengths in one or a few areas of business, and yet might be missing education or knowledge about all areas of running a business. I personally wish that there would be some sort of a mandatory sort of training, like when you get your driver's license, you have to pass a test, that there just might be a mandatory sort of general math or some things, and that's just a wish list I would see, because I think if people had to learn the basics, they could have a better foundation for succeeding.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, John, I think you mentioned that it's important to kind of know who you are. And so it kind of raises the question in my mind. There may be a perception that there isn't coordinated planning in Whatcom County. It's not coordinated in terms of the economic development programs out there. Do you agree? And this is for both of you to respond to the extent you want to. Do you agree with that? Yes or no? Is a unified approach what you want?
Today I would agree. Hopefully 6 months from now I can disagree. How's that? There is Executive Laos has supported the notion going forward, not notion, but the plan going forward to do what's called the SEDS, a Community Economic Development Strategy. And that's just a term used by the Economic Development Administration on the federal level that lays out a framework, if you will, of a community economic development strategy. When the ADO moved to the Port of Bellingham, the Northwest Economic Council still is they're still there. They have a board. It's a board organization now. There's no staff members, but they have come underneath the Council of Governments, local Council of Governments, who provide some staff support for board meetings and things of that sort. So the Council of Governments with the Northwest Economic Council are looking at beginning that process of a community economic development strategy, playing on the visions, the futures project, the visioning project that the council just wrapped up before this move. So hopefully going forward, yes, we are looking at doing that. And again, with the port commissioners supporting the economic development mission of the port, we would again be involved in that planning process as we would need to going forward. So hopefully, yeah, we're embarking on that, and that's a year from now we can say we're well on our way.
Okay. Kind of following up on the article in the Herald today about a disparity in the job market between urban and rural, using that or any other focus group, is there any sort of outreach where you say, hey, there's a specific issue there and you want to approach that or attack that? Does that make sense in terms of focusing your programs, I guess?
Well, I might have heard it differently. Focusing our programs, some of that policy is set through Congress. So what I might have understood as far as the issues and trends that we're seeing, we're you know, we don't share confidential information, but as far as sharing trends with mayor, city mayors, Jack Lows, we're free to do that. And with legislators, we're free to say, hey, these are some trends and issues that are coming up, and encourage our business owners and clients to speak up as well when there are opportunities to do so.
Yeah, I'd sort of tag back onto the export initiatives that we see. We'll try to get that information through the companies that are here. That's something that there's federal, state, local initiatives working towards that type of a thing. In terms of what's here, if we come across a company where we go, wow, we know somebody else over here that you guys could really help each other out. We do that, as often as we can to make sure. And that's really been a great thing that learning is the time we've spent going through the county. We have a really awesome manufacturing base, world-class manufacturing base, and these folks know each other and they support each other, and they do a whole lot of supply chain within the county. Hence the galvanizing comment. They would love to see that here. They don't want to have to go to Tualatin, Oregon, or go down to Seattle anymore, maybe across the border. So that is a really good piece there. That the companies we have here work together very well, I would say.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to open it up for questions from our members. Okay,
Here we go.
Yes, economic development always means population growth and more services needed for transportation and the like. And I think one thing that's very noticeable is that our area hasn't kept up infrastructure-wise with the growth of businesses and the growth of population. That our streets are way too narrow and our traffic controls are very much lacking. What can be done to alleviate that problem?
That's a great question. I mean, it's a tax base that pays for those things, and how do you determine what the correct method is to fund those projects? You'll be very curious to see. We've been waiting what's going to come out of Olympia this legislative session, and I believe Governor Inslee is going to be releasing his budget here very soon, and so we'll see going forward how those are going to be addressed. At the same time, the ports, I think, done a very good job addressing the airport issues. Whether you like them or not, there is growth there, and it needs to be addressed. And I think that's going forward. That's a very positive piece to keep that in check. Local services, local roads, and things. We'll see.
Oh, it's on. Okay. Speaking of trends. The thing, my husband just graduated with a degree in digital technology and culture, so web design, multimedia, and I've noticed, and one of the things that I was really excited about when we moved back to this area is there's a really great tech community here. They have TAG Northwest, which is a cool tech company organization. I don't see that reflected in your numbers, and I'm looking at the Whatcom County's diverse economy slide that has all of the sectors, and I'm wondering where information technology, web design, video production, those kind of industries that are really growing here, perception-wise in Whatcom County, where they fit, and if they fit under 3 different categories and therefore would be their own very large category.
CJ might know the answer to that one. I believe they fit under professional and technical services. That would be where I classify it. Unless they're going to be a consultant doing that, that fits under other services, and so that would be something that grows. You wouldn't necessarily see it under information, but other services or professional. That's where I'd see it. And yeah, we do have a great tech community that's passionate, that's growing, that's out there, so that's really cool to see. And I think that over time that might start more, but hopefully that base can locate here and start serving the rest of the world, because that is an absolute global market. Yeah, and I think when there's a focus on something and creating awareness about it, just takes a matter of time. And I think you'll start to see that.
Okay, over here.
Well, I'm always thinking about local employment, and I know that the assumption is that if we work on economic development and if it's growing beautifully, then there will be local employment growing. Who's tracking that accumulation of locally employed people? Just tracking it.
This one?
They can be locally
The
educated.
Bureau of Labor Statistics, I believe, would be tracking that.
And that information comes years later.
It can. It does come at not the year of, but could be a couple years after.
Then
yeah.
I have a suggestion. We need local data. We need to know whether the efforts that are being made are really being fed back into the, as you say, retention of the community within the community, or if, for instance, a huge sector is the cross-border sector, are they hiring locally? Who's tracking it?
The cross-border sector, that's an interesting one simply because it's all different companies that come across the border, so it's not one industry itself. So it could be food processing, it could be, manufacturing, who knows what. So it wouldn't all fit into one category, if you will. But to find how you could track Canadian-owned firms and what their employment is, I'm not sure how that would be done. That's a very good question. Another
That'd
piece
be
of
a function of your department?
We don't have the resources around, and one of the things to keep in mind, like the BLM, Bureau of Labor Statistics also, you can get those numbers down to a certain point and then they don't report them anymore because you can start actually identifying specific companies, so they will stop at that level because that's confidential information that will not be released. So that's another one of the barriers that we have hit when we're doing that type of analysis.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Well, I'd like to answer that, to speak to that. So our program tracks the jobs that are retained with the businesses that we work with and the jobs that are created, and those are backed up by third party. Again, that's just a sample of the clients that we see. That's not every business in Whatcom County, but it is a small sample showing, that should show trends.
I was going to ask this question independently, but in fact, two people have previously addressed some of the issues, but I want to build on that, and that is this issue about, it seems like whenever we hear something about growing business in the Whatcom County area, we always defer to manufacturing, which ends up being very intensive in terms of infrastructure, and we expend a lot of cost just to bring those businesses here and be able to support them. I have an organization where, what we sell is information and ideas and intellectual property. I drive 1,500 miles a year. I don't truck anything in or truck anything out. And our revenues are reasonably high. We need to look at ways that we can emphasize, just to somebody's earlier point, how do we bring people into this community and keep them here? I have employees who don't live in this state at all because I can leave them where they are. I'd love to have them here. How do we get them here, and how do we look at how we grow our community intellectually? We have a great university that's producing, I'm in education, producing great educators. They have to go elsewhere to be employed. I want to keep them here.
So, yeah, do you want to
Sure,
address,
yeah,
basically, it sounds like to me it's how do we try to target that sector as opposed to manufacturing?
Well, I wanted to say that the businesses that seek us out, it's up to them. So the businesses that are showing up are the ones that are seeking us out. We don't have an agenda to go out and work with a certain type of industry. It's completely up to the business that comes. So that, I just wanted to make that part clear. As far as, at least what I've seen or heard as far as attracting employees, it seems that employees leave because the wages are higher elsewhere. So to me, the simple solution is pay higher to keep employees here. But as far as attracting, that's not something our program does, but it certainly is a benefit if businesses are coming to have a program such as ours with our services for them. But maybe John can speak a little more to that.
Well, yeah, real briefly, I would just say that back to the Nooksack River analogy, if it turns out that the businesses you're referring to in that type of industry sector works here, and I believe it does, I think it works very well here. Over time, again, it takes time, and start growing those people that do move here and say, hey, this is really nice. This is a great place to do business, to do this type of work, and the word slowly gets out. But it takes time to do those types of things. And I think, the tech sector today as compared to, 10, 15 years ago, I think we can see some increases that have been taking place there.
Yeah, right here.
I wonder if anyone is questioning whether the community wants growth. A couple months ago, I saw a transition Whatcom film about a Colorado man who was questioning his community's need to grow. Is that our number one value, or is it sustainability and quality of life? And what happens when we grow? Where does it end? I mean, it seems like this economic growth is kind of like a big monster that's kind of harmed the planet in some instances. And I'm wondering if growth is really, I hear just growth, growth, growth from everybody. Is that what the community wants?
That's something the community needs to answer.
All right. Oh, one right here.
Hi.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Mention of the disparity in the employment rates in the rural and the urban areas. What I didn't hear mention of is anything in regard to supporting agriculture in the county, since agriculture is a major employer of people outside of the city.
Definitely the agriculture community is a huge part of Whatcom County, no doubt about it. And again, partner organizations that we work with all the time. There's Farm Friends and the Northwest Agriculture Business Center, two off the top of my head, that are exclusively involved in the ag sector and making sure that those companies succeed and do very well. We come in and get involved when need be. We made a loan to a local dairy with our revolving loan fund to help them start some new products, and they've been very successful with that. So that's definitely something we pay attention to, and again, going out and meeting with companies going forward, the ag sector is something we'd like to be, maybe going and talking to more if need be. It's also a function of, folks coming to us and saying we need X, Y, and Z, and at that case we would definitely pay some more attention to it. But thus far, we've worked with a few companies doing that, and I like to think that it's a huge part of our economy, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree with John. When I came to Whatcom County, agriculture stood out as one of the first callers compared to King County, where I'd been, where there wasn't a lot of ag businesses. So our program doesn't work with direct producers such as farms, because there's so many other programs out there that do that. But we do work with value-added agriculture, and as you saw in the startup, that was our top that was a top growth trend right now. And we teach business planning to Sustainable Connections WSU extension as far as working with farmers and ranchers. So we'll provide as much training and business counseling with them as we can and help them with financing packages and you name it.
Okay, we have a question here.
Good afternoon, Renata Kowalczyk, local entrepreneur and economic development partner. I'm curious if you both could comment about a need as well as potentially existence of partnerships with local educational institutions. Governor Inslee had identified number one issue in fostering those new industries and the current ones. It's educational gap. We have examples here in County. Kelly had mentioned Technology Alliance Northwest, when they created an experiment and they created a job bank. Within 2 weeks, there were 70 jobs from high-tech companies locally that were unfilled. Index Sensors goes out and hires people from Midwest because we don't have the skills. What is being done to bridge the gap between the skills that are needed and the skills that our students, graduates, come out of education institutions?
I have only just a little bit to say to that, because our program doesn't necessarily focus on that, but what we do offer is, because of our partnership with Western, students that are at Western in whatever field that they're training in, we can partner them with businesses so that they can get real-world experience. And we do a lot of that collaboration, student teams, matching internships, and such. So that's about the extent of what we can do within our program to get training out there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I just finished yesterday reading the draft from the Northwest Workforce Council 5-year strategy going forward, and they hit all those issues in their planning, and that with the higher eds we have in the area, working with local businesses, manufacturers, and all businesses, making sure that the workforce that they can train is going to be trained and available. So that's definitely part of it. There's some scary things on the horizon, though, too. You know, I've heard this bantered about. It's anecdotal, so you know, nothing factual. But I've heard from more than one person that Boeing, half of their workforce is eligible to retire in the next 5 years. So, you know, there you have it. How's that going to look? But I do know that locally we have this great system in place with Employment Security Department, Northwest Workforce Council, all these folks that know these issues are there and working on ways to resolve them. You know.
Okay, question over here.
It strikes me that the Port of Bellingham and recruiting businesses to come to our area has a certain set of criteria that you look for. You want a business that's strong, you want a business that employs a lot of people, et cetera. I'm wondering if sustainability is anywhere on that list, because the earlier speaker questioned the idea of growth. And I think we all want growth, but we may want more growth in quality than in quantity. And the way to preserve the quality of life that we have here is clearly to bring in the right businesses that are going to enhance the health of our environment and provide employment for people in ways that that build the sustainable infrastructure that we have right here, as opposed to, say, resource extraction kinds of industries that may degrade the environment in which they are located.
Yeah. First thing, at this stage of the game, we're not necessarily recruiting companies. We're here to respond to inquiries that companies want to come to the area. So we don't have a set of criteria of companies we go out and look for. We are a resource for folks looking to move to us. So to begin with that. Secondly, then, when we get these inquiries, typically they'll be from the State Department of Commerce, where site selectors go to the state level and say, this is the criteria of what we need. It might be this many square feet. A lot of times they'll say we need, do a labor shed analysis, where we'll work with our local regional economists to come up with these numbers to see if it's a fit to begin with. A lot of the time, these projects self-select them out of our area. And this is a very gross example, I understand, but just as an example, about a year ago we got an inquiry through Commerce for a company. They wanted to open an oil refinery. And they were going to power the oil refinery with 2 coal-fired power plants. Wait. And they only needed 5 of their own deep water docks. Our response was, before you take any more steps in this regard, you might want to talk to the Department of Ecology and Department of Natural Resources and see if this would work. So that, again, that's a very gross example, I understand, but a lot of these they will self-select out from the qualities that we believe and we have here already. At the end of the day, though, if a company wants to move to the area, it's not for me to say yes or no. It's me to provide the services that we have. And again, that's a community question that can be set as to, do we want to limit that, or do we want to define what that is? And that's something that, that would be direction that would be given to me from above, that we would then go with that.
Now, the final question.
Yes, hi. I wanted to ask the question in regards to the development of the port and how you look for trade across the Pacific.
That would be a great question for my boss, who's not here today. That really is out of my purview of what I do in my position. We do local, the economic development piece, countywide, and developing port properties. That's a higher level piece that I would have to defer to get you information more on that later if you would like. But I don't have the answer to that one myself.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I want to thank the presenters and thank you all for the great questions, and appreciate it. And as you know, it's customary to offer a gift to our presenters, and we have that for you. It's Whatcom Places number 2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.